Son says he found a stray dog. The vet is shocked when he realizes what it really is. Lucas was an adventurous 10-year-old who loved exploring the woods behind his suburban home. He had always been curious, constantly searching for hidden treasures or creatures that might be lurking just out of sight. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Lucas stumbled upon something that stopped him in his tracks. There, tangled in the underbush, was an animal unlike any he had seen ever before. At first glance, it looked just like a stray dog. But as Lucas inched closer, he noticed its odd features. The creature had a tawny and gray coat, much like a coyote, but its face was different. It had a rough mask-like quality with cracked, weathered skin that seemed almost human. The eyes were unsettling, dark and deep, holding an intelligence that Lucas couldn't quite understand. Welcome back to Plot Twister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. Lucas felt a strange pull toward the creature. It looked lost, maybe even hurt, and despite its unusual appearance, Lucas's heart went out to it. Carefully, he reached out, expecting to shy away, but instead the creature slowly stepped forward, sniffing at his hand, before pressing his head gently into his palm. A bond was formed in that moment, unspoken but undeniable. Lucas knew he couldn't just leave it there. He called out to his mother, Sarah, who had always been supportive of his love for animals. But even she was taken aback when she saw what Lucas had brought home. The creature was about the size of a large dog, but its odd, almost human-like face gave her pause. She tried to hide her unease, not wanting to scare Lucas, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Sarah's initial shock gave way to concern. She suggested they take the creature to the vet to make sure it was healthy and to see if anyone might be looking for a lost dog. Lucas agreed, although he couldn't help but feel a protective instinct towards the strange animal. It wasn't just any stray, he was sure of that. But what it actually was, he had no idea. As they loaded the creature into the car, Sarah couldn't help but glance back at it through the rearview mirror. Its eyes met hers, sending a shiver down her spine. Something was off, but she pushed the thought aside, focusing on getting it the help it might need. Little did they know this was just the beginning of a mystery that would leave them questioning everything they thought they knew. The next morning, Lucas and Sarah arrived at Dr. Bennett's veterinary clinic. The small waiting room was filled with the usual hustle and bustle. Pets in carriers, dogs on leashes, and the soft hum of conversation. But as soon as they walked in with the creature, the room seemed to shift. The other animals grew uneasy, some whining, others retreating to their owner's arms. It was as if they sensed something strange, something out of the ordinary. Dr. Bennett greeted them with a warm smile, though it faltered slightly when he saw what they had brought in. He was an experienced vet, having seen all sorts of animals over the years, but there was something about this one that made him pause. Still, he quickly composed himself and led them into the examination room, where the creature hopped onto the table with surprising ease. As Dr. Bennett began his examination, he couldn't help but notice the creature's unusual features. The tawny gray fur was matted in places, and its limbs were strong and lean, like those of a wild animal. But it was the face that caught his attention the most. The skin was rough, almost as if there were a mask, and the features, while undeniably animalistic, had an eerie, distorted resemblance to a human's. The eyes, dark and deep, seemed to watch him with a strange awareness that was both unsettling and intriguing. He tried to stay focused, moving methodically through his usual checks. Temperature, heart rate, reflexes, but each result left him more puzzled. Everything was slightly off, just enough to keep him on edge. The creature remained calm under his touch, though its eyes never left him, as if it were studying him just as intently as he was studying it. Dr. Bennett stepped back for a moment, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this creature, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Trying to remain professional, he continued with the examination, though a knot of unease had begun to form in his stomach. As the minutes ticked by, Dr. Bennett's initial curiosity began to turn into concern. He glanced at Sarah, who was watching anxiously from the corner of the room, and then at Lucas, who was standing close by, his eyes filled with worry. Dr. Bennett hesitated, then decided he needed more time to figure out what exactly he was dealing with. He looked at Sarah and Lucas, his expression serious now. He needed to run more tests. Something about this creature wasn't right, and he intended to find out what it was, even if it took all night. Back at home, Sarah couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had been growing inside her since the vet visit. As Lucas slept, she sat in the dimly lit living room, her laptop open on the coffee table. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the low hum of the refrigerator. She knew something was off about the creature, something beyond just its appearance. Driven by a nagging sense of worry, she began searching the internet for answers. Sarah typed in every combination of words she could think of. Strange dog-like animals, human-faced creatures, mysterious forest finds. Each search led her deeper into a rabbit hole of obscure forums, cryptic articles, and stories that seemed more like urban legends than real-life accounts. But nothing matched exactly what Lucas had found. The more she searched, the more anxious she became, the unsettling feeling in her chest growing stronger with each passing hour. Then, in the middle of the night, the phone rang. Sarah jumped, her heart racing as she reached for it. On the other end was Dr. Bennett, his voice tense, almost urgent. He had stayed late at the clinic, running tests and trying to find some answers of his own. But the results were unlike anything he'd ever seen. The creature's physiology didn't match any known species, and its behavior was becoming more unpredictable. He asked her to come back to the clinic in the morning. There was something about the creature he couldn't explain, and he needed to talk to her and Lucas face to face. The next morning, they returned to the clinic. Dr. Bennett was waiting for them, looking tired but determined. The creature had been kept in a secure room overnight, and when they approached, it seemed agitated, pacing back and forth, its eyes flicking to the door as soon as they entered. It seemed calm when it saw Lucas, pressing his face against the glass, almost like it was relieved to see him. Dr. Bennett led them to his office, where another person was waiting, a wildlife specialist named Dr. Harper. She had been called in to help identify the creature, but even she was at a loss. The features, she explained, were unlike anything she had encountered in her years of studying rare and unusual species. The human-like face, the animalistic body, it didn't fit into any category which was known. It was as if nature had combined two completely different beings into one. Dr. Harper suggested they conduct more tests, and as the adults discussed what to do next, Lucas couldn't help but feel a growing connection to the creature. Despite everything, he felt like it was trying to communicate with him, to tell him something important. He stayed close to the door of the room where the creature was kept, whispering to it softly. The creature responded by pressing its head against the door, its strange dark eyes fixed on Lucas as if it was silently pleading for help. The tension in the clinic was palpable, everyone on edge as they tried to figure out what exactly they were dealing with. But one thing was clear, this was no ordinary animal, and the mystery surrounding it was far from being solved. The atmosphere in Dr. Bennett's clinic grew heavier as the hours ticked by. The tension was thick, almost tangible, as they awaited the results of the DNA tests. Dr. Bennett had rushed through. Lucas stayed near the creature's room, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. Every time he spoke, the creature would calm down, its agitated pacing slowing to a gentle rhythmic motion. It was as if Lucas's presence was the only thing keeping it from completely unraveling. Dr. Bennett and Dr. Harper huddled in the office, speaking in low, hurried tones. The situation was far beyond anything they had ever encountered. Dr. Harper had called in a few favors, contacting colleagues who might have insights, but no one had answers. Every theory they proposed only deepened the mystery. As the day wore on, an unexpected knock on the clinic door startled them all. A man dressed in a dark coat and wearing a tense expression stepped inside. He introduced himself as Mr. Black, claiming to be from a government agency that specialized in rare and unidentified species. His appearance only added to the unease that had been building. Mr. Black didn't waste time with pleasantries. He demanded to see the creature immediately. Dr. Bennett hesitated but led him to the room. The creature, sensing the new arrival, grew agitated once again. Mr. Black observed it with a calculating gaze, his face unreadable. After a moment, he turned to Dr. Bennett and Dr. Harper, his voice low and clipped. He spoke of things that sounded too surreal to be true. Whispers of secret experiments, genetic anomalies, and creatures that shouldn't exist. He hinted that the creature was part of something much larger, something that had been hidden from the public for a long time. As Mr. Black spoke, the creature suddenly let out a low, almost mournful sound, its eyes locking onto Lucas. It trashed against the glass, causing everyone to jump. Lucas, without thinking, rushed to the door, placing his hand on the glass. The creature immediately calmed, pressing its head where Lucas's hand rested, like a scared child seeking comfort. Dr. Bennett's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the tension. The DNA results were in. He quickly retrieved them, his eyes scanning the report. As he read, his face went pale. He handed the results to Dr. Harper, who looked equally stunned. The creature's DNA was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't fully animal, but it wasn't fully human either. There were traces of human DNA mixed with something else, something they couldn't identify. Mr. Black's expression remained stern, but there was a glint in his eyes that suggested he had expected this all along. He informed them that the government had been looking for this creature, and now that it had been found, it needed to be taken back to where it came from. Lucas, overhearing the conversation, felt a rush of panic. He couldn't let them take the creature away, not after everything. But before anyone could react, the creature let out a desperate cry, its voice echoing through the clinic. The lights flickered, and for a moment it felt like the entire building was trembling. Lucas pressed his hand harder against the glass, his heart pounding. The creature quieted, its eyes meeting him with a pleading look. Everyone in the room was frozen, unsure of what to do next. The mystery of the creature had been revealed, but the decision of what to do with it hung heavy in the air. The room fell into a tense silence, the air thick with uncertainty. Mr. Black stood by the door, his gaze fixed on the creature. Lucas remained by the glass, his hand still pressed against it, refusing to move. The bond between him and the creature had grown too strong to ignore, and everyone in the room could feel it. Dr. Bennett finally broke the silence, his voice calm but firm. He explained that while the creature's DNA was a mystery, one thing was clear. It had formed a connection with Lucas, something that couldn't be easily dismissed. Dr. Harper nodded in agreement, adding that the creature showed signs of intelligence and emotion, far beyond what they had initially thought. It wasn't just an experiment gone wrong. It was a living being, one that deserved more than to be locked away in a lab. Mr. Black listened, his expression unreadable. For a moment, it seemed like he might insist on taking the creature away, but then he looked at Lucas. The boy's determination was evident, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and resolve. It was clear he wouldn't let go without a fight. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Black let out a slow breath. He admitted that while his orders were clear, he wasn't without compassion. He suggested a compromise. The creature could stay with Lucas and Sarah under the condition that its existence remained a secret. The government would keep a close eye on them, ensuring the creature didn't pose any danger. But for now, it would be allowed to live a peaceful life, far from the labs and experiments. Relief washed over the room. Lucas turned to the creature, a smile breaking across his face. The creature responded by pressing its head against the glass, a low, contented sound rumbling from its chest. It was as if it understood what was happening, as if it knew it was finally safe. Over the following days, the creature, now named Ekko by Lucas, began to settle into its new home. It still retained some of its wild instincts, but with Lucas by its side, it became more docile, more at ease. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, a silent understanding that transcended words. Sarah watched as her son and Ekko played in the backyard, a sense of peace finally settling over her. The past few days had been a whirlwind of confusion and fear, but now there was a sense of hope. Ekko was no longer a mystery to be solved, but a part of the family, something to be cherished and protected. The story of Ekko remained their secret, a strange and beautiful chapter in their lives that would never be fully understood by anyone else. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that Ekko had found a place where it belonged, where it could live without fear. As the sun set on another day, Lucas sat beside Ekko, his hand resting on its fur. The creature leaned into him, its eyes closing in contentment. Whatever Ekko had been, whatever secrets it held in its strange DNA, it didn't change the fact that here, with Lucas and Sarah, it had found a home. And for Lucas, that was all that mattered. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.